Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Diaspora Dialogue series with LA. I am Lillian Agbeigbe, your host on this program. Do you know that 1 in 10 Black people in the US are immigrants? That's just in the US. A research has it that diasporans all over the world are actually like a third country behind China and India because we're all over the world. But what we are doing on the Diaspora Dialogue series is really talking to diasporans all over the world to try and get a sense of how they came to be in the diaspora and how they're staying connected with home, what they're doing in their new land and what was going on in their old land. Today, I have a very interesting guest joining me. Attorney Tinu Akinshola is joining me from Maryland in the United States. Attorney Akinshola, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. I'm thrilled, really.
Thank you so much. I'm doing very great, and thank you for joining me. So, Attorney Tinu Akinshola, your name is a dead giveaway, as it were. I know you're originally from Nigeria, but I also know that you went to college in Nigeria. You're an attorney, you have a law degree from Nigeria. So tell me, what was your thinking at that time? What were you doing in Nigeria, and what was your long-term plans when you went to study law at the university?
Okay, so that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I am Tinu Akinshola. I was born originally as Tinu Ade Ajao, and of course, born and raised in Lagos, on the island to be specific. And this is Lagos Central, Lagos Island. So anyway, I went to law school in Ife, Obafemi Awolowo University. Of course, prior to that, I was a Jakonde student. You know how it goes. So yeah, and went to law school in OAU, Obafemi Awolowo University, because of the fact that really, before I started law school, before I started at Obafemi Awolowo University, I actually went to Yabatech for as few as 2 weeks. And this was because I was always wanting to be a secretary first and then go on to law school and then do a course. Then they call it actually to be chartered as a chartered institute of secretaries. Like you have accountants, there's that for secretaries too. And I also wanted to be like a diplomat or an ambassador, work in the external affairs ministry. And this would be in line with me going to law school. So I was going to do the law school last instead of as I have accelerated it. But my aunties and uncles, they would not allow me. And they were always like, oh my gosh, Tinu, you have this brain, you can't waste the brain. No, you're not doing that. Because I was a commercial student, business student. So, and I was very comfortable, being at that secretarial and accounting level. And they said no. So that was how I was told you have to do JAM. And once you do JAM, you have to do lawyers. Exactly. And then I look around and I'm like, I want to be a lawyer, of course, because I mean, civil rights, human rights have always been my issues. Now that I'm a lawyer, I think about it in the past because of all the things I've done, growing up. Everybody knows you always have something to say. Even when nobody is talking, I'm talking, I'm defending others, and that. So, and specifically, it so happened that my grandmother, that was instrumental in raising myself and my sisters, she was a wholesaler, really, a distributor, yeah, and dude by this guy who gave her some money and said he had already paid for everything because my grandmother was paying attention to the laborers that used to help her to load up lorries and trucks, when she has that bulk purchase. And her little sister, who used to assist her, was already in the store. So no one around her that was learned or educated or even vigilant other than her. So that thing happened. So, and at that time, I was so infuriated. And as soon as my grandmother learned that I would be a lawyer, she was like, oh my gosh, I hope this girl is not going to be defending culprits and criminals, because she couldn't, for the life of her, believe that anyone would actually defend this so-called person who was stolen from her in broad daylight, so, but of course she encouraged and all that. And I went to Ife, and the rest, they say, is
It's
history.
history. So you went to Ife to learn law, sort of
Yes,
to be able to support people like your grandmother who may have people dupe them. Great.
yes.
So you went
To advocate, like I've always done.
to advocate, to learn how to be able to advocate to people. And since your grandmother was your motivation, I would think that you were thinking of advocating for people like your grandmother in Lagos there in Nigeria. So how did you end up in America then, if you were like, I'm working for these people? What happened to bring you to the US?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So, I was, in Nigeria, where after the 4-year college, now they make it 5 years. Um, I you are supposed to go to law
Let's
school, and
go.
our law school is just so it prepares you for the litigation part, and
Mm-hmm.
then learn more how to draft not really an agreement, but agreement is part of it. Then
Mm-hmm.
you learn how to draft what do you call it? You know how to read the
Okay.
draftings, the
Legal briefings and things like that.
maps, and all those blueprints of, and then to actually prepare leases, estates, trust, wills,
Mm-hmm.
all those things, and then criminal procedure laws, all those things. Even the real corporate practice, they taught us there, so that, and then after that 1 year, now it's 2 years. After that 1 year, we would write an exam, and then you will be called to the Nigerian bar as they call it Supreme Court, solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. And
Okay.
that I was on December 15, 1993.
Okay.
Yes. And so after that, actually, it was during that time, um, myself and one certain close, intimate friend, I was gonna go to the hospital because of a certain condition that I had then. So, wanting to procure a medical report so that when I go into NYSC, for us lawyers and doctors, they have us uh, go serve at the for the NYSC after everything is said and done, after law school
Okay. Okay.
for the lawyers. So that's why all our mates were already in the on
Mm-hmm.
the camp. So yeah, ours will be deferred to the following year. So, and that's what happened. So I went, and at Onikon Hospital, wanting to meet with the doctor who can test me and also give me a report, so they will not post me to a place that would actually be too harsh for that condition. So
Okay.
that, so, and then that's what I went to do. Lo and behold, I met my future brother-in-law, and my husband came along, and then I had to be married. Of course, I served. I served at in Katsina at the
Mm-hmm.
Chief Magistrate Court in Malufashi local government in Katsina State. And 1994 December was
Okay.
when I found myself here due to relocation to be with my husband.
Okay, so your husband was already here and then you got married
Yes,
and then you had to move. Great. So you had done all your schoolwork, done your primary education, your college, and then you moved into to be with your husband. Were there any cultural surprises when you came? What were you expecting when you were like, okay, I'm getting married, I'm going to the US, and then you came to the US? What didn't align with your expectations and what aligned with your expectations?
Oh, a host of things. For example, let's assume, okay, actually, it's not an assumption, it's actually what happened. So when I came over, before I came, my husband was instrumental in helping me to seek admission because my plan is to go ahead with my graduate studies, which was LLM,
Okay.
Masters in International Law, and then International and Comparative Law. I had two different admissions.
Mm-hmm.
So Howard University was one, as
Mm-hmm.
well as Georgetown University. So
Okay.
my husband, outside of his BS,
Mm-hmm.
his MS and a PhD, everything was through Howard. So
Okay.
he goes, you have the opportunity for Georgetown. Go to Georgetown. Let's diversify and let's see how the Lord will help you. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I did. And so went to Georgetown. So being in Georgetown actually opened my eyes to a lot of things. One of them being, of course, as a student, what do you expect? My first culture shock as a student is seeing students, of course, in the class, they were older people, as in already working class, group,
Mm-hmm.
and then regular students
Mm-hmm.
and people like me who are married and all that. So, but it didn't really strike me at that time because I was looking for certain types of students
Mm-hmm.
and behaving in certain types of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pleasantly shocked when I saw students, in fact, almost everyone eating or drinking or chewing or, making noise with snacks and all that. At first, I'm like, these people are so rude,
Mm-hmm.
because in Nigeria, back then in Ife, in college, you dare not even chew gum
Mm-hmm.
at the presence of your professor, or
Mm-hmm.
even let alone that they would know that you're chewing something
Mm-hmm.
other than gum. And here they are with sodas, and even some people are eating their lunches or dinners at that
Mm-hmm.
class. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this professor is going to fail people and all that. So that was one prime culture shock to me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I was married, and then as someone who is expecting, because I came in December and by February I was already pregnant. So I was pregnant in the class. And of course, you don't have a lot of people, who will help you and all that. But we
Mm-hmm.
had a little close-knit group who are very close with my husband, as aunties, because they are most older than I. And every now and then I ask questions and all that. But one thing that I know that really settled with me is that you just have to do a lot of things by yourself.
Hmm.
Really, as a matter of fact, even talking about um, outside of that, domestically, you do everything yourself. But I have a partner who kind of like is very much intimately engaged, in the household,
Mm-hmm.
and very offer a lot of assistance even throughout the baby coming and all that. Yeah. So, but even outside of that, in school, we eat a lot. So I now started joining the group, we will eat and all that, but I made sure not to be disruptive about that because I know that where I came, you dare not do that. So
Yeah, let me ask you, you were saying, your husband is very hands-on. Did you find that to be surprising coming from Nigeria? Were you used to relatives and all that? Did you see husbands being hands-on, or was it a pleasant surprise to find your husband as supportive, or was that something you were used to?
It was mixed feelings, really,
Mm.
because in growing up, my dad was also handsome,
Okay.
but not to that extent, of course. I know some of my uncles who are well educated also, but in particular here, because I know that, when you're courting, there are so many things that you both share that you will talk about,
Mm-hmm.
but seeing him putting actions behind his words,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised, yes.
Great. And because I think because your husband was already here, you didn't have challenge in finding a community. Did you feel like homesick? You mean, coming, or were you able to find a community that made you feel like at home here?
Oh, yes, 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 I did. I wasn't really homesick to the level that, oh Lord, I want to go home, because of as I've said earlier on, my husband belonged to a group of friends that monthly they met. Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
They gather around in each other's house. It will be my house this month, it will be somebody's house next month. And it actually started as group of friends, and then it gravitated into them forming an organization, Yoruba Tennis Club, they call
Okay.
themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, so group of friends. And then also because they were saying that because these people, we are all Yorubas, we want our children perhaps in the future to marry each other. And then, but one thing that was shocking is this, and that actually started from us. So I know that they didn't really speak Yoruba with their kids, for those of them who have already started having babies. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because my
Mm-hmm.
husband started later in life. I
Mm-hmm.
am really I started at the right time, but him is a late bloomer, as they will call it. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so those kids would not understand Yoruba, they would not speak, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them really can tell what you say, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't articulate or speak it back to you. So
Okay.
for my husband and I, we were determined that my kids, our children, will
Mm-hmm.
actually speak, read, and write the language Yoruba.
For real?
Yes, yes, and that we did. So, but when we started originally, they were all saying, they were down, no, don't mind them. Those kids, they don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we also bought into the foolery thoughts that if you speak a second language other than English to your children, it gets them slowed down in school, or it
Mm.
gets them they are at disadvantage of thinking
Mm-hmm.
straight and thinking fast like their
Mm-hmm.
peers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you want to hide that accent or that culture or that
Mm-hmm.
language, and you now will be speaking the English that you don't even know how to
Mm-hmm.
speak anyway. So, and I'm sorry. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they did. But then when they saw that, for me, and because I have 6 or 8 year gap between both my children,
Okay.
Tolu was the only child for a long time. And once we had her, we started speaking Yoruba was my daughter's, even my son's first language.
Oh, okay.
Up until she went to school, to daycare, you know. And every Saturday we purpose that we will be speaking Yoruba. No, no, we will take her through the Yoruba book. And
Mm-hmm.
once I was pregnant and my husband went back home, we got Akomolede, all those books that
Mm-hmm.
I read as a
Mm-hmm.
Yoruba girl, in Yoruba
Mm-hmm.
class. And so we will be teaching her Aja, all those things. And
Wow.
she grasped it so much,
Wow.
even to the level that yeah, that this thing happened even when she went home with me. I visited Nigeria 6 years after I
Mm-hmm.
got here,
Mm-hmm.
and I took her with me. She was 4 years not quite 5. She was going to be 5 years in 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got home, of course, she was happy playing with all her cousins. And we
Mm-hmm.
came back. That accent, the Nigerian accent, sort of like wanted to stick with her. And you know what? And when she went back to school, and the kids, her peers, they were like, what's that? You know, and then she quickly switched back.
Oh
So
wow. So
my
you
daughter
learned
now, she can flip back and forth. She
okay.
can do accent, Niger, American, French,
So
Italy. I mean, USO. Yeah, but
awesome. So she's
mhm,
American born, but she can beat the Nigerian, accent if she wants to. Uh,
exactly. And
awesome,
this and
great.
the brother
And
too.
the
Yeah.
brother as well.
Hmm.
So you came after you finished school, so you probably didn't get to work in the corporates or the world in Nigeria. But what do you have to say about, your career path in the US? What's very striking about your career path? Are there any differences from what you had envisaged your career path was going to be in Nigeria?
Yes, a whole lot, 100%, really, if I have to be candid.
Mm,
Now, even where I work, I see myself as, and this is a choice, okay? I see myself as doing something that is really way beneath or not at the level where I should have been if I was home. But that is if you're comparing at that ladder.
mm,
But when you're comparing it with other things, I believe that I am in the right place. And I will tell you why I'm saying that. I have my colleagues, who we all went to the same school, and even now, some of them are now SANs, some of them are what you call honorables, those representatives at National Assembly. Some of them are governors. Some of them have actually been directors or head of some kind of corporations or
okay.
government parastatals.
Mm,
Even banks, one of my friends or two of them are general counsels, in banks and
mm,
very big popular banks. But
mhm,
but coming back home here, I will tell you that I have learned so much. I've been exposed to so much, and my education, the quality of education I've had, even outside of going to the four corners of the school, you cannot beat it, and I
mm,
won't trade it for anything.
mm, mm,
And I say that to say that because of my law degree, it has really gotten me into some kind of landings, several landings that where I'm competing with others, I am still a little or even more
mm,
above, head of others. And practicing is a struggle, but like you said, for me, because I was already maybe legal
mhm,
in a way, because when I was coming at that time, I
mhm,
was one of those people that would come with their big package.
mhm,
I'd already have everything done. They filed for me, and my green card is successful. All I needed to do is bring the package here
mhm,
and then send it over to them. In fact, I presented it to them at immigration at entry, and
mhm,
then they would have my green card sent to me on a
mhm,
certain day. Everything was already set in motion for me,
mhm,
so I didn't have that problem. But even at that, as a legal resident, I
mhm.
still faced a lot of discrimination, if
Okay,
that's where what you
okay.
want me to say.
Mhm,
So um and maybe I won't use the word discrimination, even though it is.
mhm.
Let's say that both discrimination and challenges, a lot of
Okay,
challenges. Okay.
okay.
So discrimination on the sense that, of course, the racial part is there. And then, of course, the education part, in the sense that this is your education LLB, is not JD here, even though it's comparable. So I have to always have to challenge or overcome the challenge of questions that they will barrage you with. You know, they tell you, okay, yeah, you need to I'm blanking out on that word that they use. It's sort of like you have to like weigh your transcripts and
Mm-hmm.
your credit hours, so that
You
they
have to
will.
evaluate your transcripts.
Evaluation is the word. Thank you.
Okay.
So you need to evaluate
Mm-hmm.
your coursework, your transcript, and all that. But thankfully, because I already have LLM, so that kind of like make do for me and explain away that, okay, if this is LLB, it must have been comparable before they could.
You give your
Georgetown, for that
LLM.
matter, could allow
Absolutely.
me to do LLM. So
LLM.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, you still foreign JD.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
two things, and I wanted to work at the federal government office, Environmental Protection Agency, the FBI. I mean, talk about any agency that I
Okay.
wanted to work the federal. You can't, because they'll tell you until you become a citizen, even though you are a green card holder. So that now kind of like excuse me from that. So
So,
my search is lowered. I
okay.
can't widen it until I became a citizen. And
Okay.
even at the citizen level, oh yeah, your JD is that. Oh, you just have
So
discrimination
there's some
or
things that are
something from
going
somewhere.
on.
Yeah, they will just tell you something. So
That makes me think about some of the conversations that I've heard, people say, oh, you leave Nigeria and you come abroad and you're doing things that you wouldn't do in Nigeria, as it were. So when I hear you say, some of my contemporaries are like at this place and I'm here, not that way, do you think that there's a disadvantage for Nigerian professionals to come abroad, or what's your spin on that? There are people who say, or just Nigerians generally come, because there are people who say, oh, you should be at home at this level, and you come here and you're doing things that you wouldn't do at home, or maybe is there, and I know you said something about quality of education, but I wanted to really go for that, ask specifically, do you think there's an advantage or disadvantage for Nigerians coming abroad?
I mean, depending on the perception, right?
Okay.
But I would tell you it's a yes and it's a no
Okay.
answer. And yes, in the sense that for somebody like me and some of the lawyers out there, even medical doctors can bear me witness, if you come with your foreign JD or your foreign medical degree, you have to be ready to stoop to conquer, right?
Okay.
So because they will tell you, of course, you need to know the process, how it is done here, right? You have to immerse yourself in the way, the court system. You need to understand. You need to understand even though law is law, but of course, for us, it's also common law in Nigeria. While I was training, while I was going through the LLP, I learned both the English law, and we also did some American law.
Okay.
Both are based on common law, and we are
Okay.
common law based in Nigeria.
Okay.
So, but then because of the disparity between the degree, of course, it's one is JD, one is LLB, yeah, and then the fact that it's coming from Nigeria, and the fact that you are not even licensed to practice law here, so you can't just walk fresh off the boat to get to secure an attorney position. It
Okay.
doesn't happen that way. So you will have to first do the law So some jurisdiction would not, at that time, they won't even look at you unless you go back and do do the LLB or JD over again, American law, and then you do the bar here. But some will allow you fresh off the boat, go and do New York
Bar
exam.
exam.
Yes. Or go and do California bar exam. And others will say, okay, yeah, if you have LLM, we will let you do our
Bar exam.
bar exam. And then some of them will say, back then in 94, 95, I'm saying. So some will say, oh yeah, we'll let you wave into our jurisdiction like DC if you score a certain score amount on there is this multiple choice part, and then that is not
So it does
so
it just depends on where you are,
it depends. Yes,
and sometimes you have to take a step back. It's almost like you said, stoop to conquer, right?
you stoop to conquer.
You have to take a step back, and it's not so much of, it might seem like a disadvantage on one front, but in the long run, you're going to see advantages to it.
It is because, and I tell you that I don't mean to butt in, but I have to add to that. It's a very big advantage to you in the sense that when you, for example, me, that got me into, even aside from being a contract attorney after passing the bar, I had to know how to tap into the system. Don't forget that I wasn't a citizen yet, but I was a legal resident. So I can work within the state or local government parastatals. So what did I do? I volunteered at the state attorney's office in my
Okay.
county. And
Okay.
so even though it's for one day a week, it's
Mm-hmm.
really opened my eyes to a lot. And
Wow.
then I attached myself with attorneys who are, ahead of me, who
Mm-hmm.
are already practicing here. Some of them won't even pay you, but I was ready to go to their office to learn, help them do certain things.
So,
From there, I was exposed to how they did things, and
yeah.
then they were helping me to study for the bar, and then, I
So
learned.
that
And if
volunteering networking was beneficial.
volunteering, networking, being around the people, the professionals, being around what you want to be in a
And
certain, where you see yourself in the future. And that's why I thought it was a very good advantage for me. Yeah. So
awesome.
I made good use of that. And then, of course, before attorney position, I was always like a paralegal, like some
Mhm.
special kind of
And you're
um
still learning in all of these
and
things, even
and
if you're
and
not
I still learn
practicing
exactly.
law.
And
You're
even
still,
you secure positions that allow you to learn while you earn. And
hmm
then I'm learning so much more that being a lawyer does not mean that you have to go to court every
exactly,
time, or
exactly.
it is just only about court. So
hmm
once I learned that, I could not be held back. And I
All right.
was always telling my friends, anybody that care to listen, I'll tell them, please don't look for attorney title job because you won't find it.
Find
They won't
them.
call you. Read the
Okay,
job
okay,
descriptions,
okay.
do this. These are the
So,
buzzwords you look for. And that
so
was
don't
how
so
my life came to be.
don't limit
Don't
yourself
limit you.
looking for attorney only title jobs. There are other things,
Yes,
there are other ways in which you can contribute, and you can really get fulfillment working in those. Let's look
exactly.
at two streets, as it were. On one side of the street, we're going to look at, what you like most about being an American, what do you like least about being American, and then we will go on the flip side also. What do you miss most about Nigeria, and what don't you miss about Nigeria?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's start with, what do I like most about being an American?
Yes.
It opens doors for you anywhere. That's what I love most being an American, you
hmm
know, because, and I'm saying it's opened doors of opportunity for you in certain areas where, of course, for me, I'm not trying to change my accent. So, but merely seeing you with a green passport or even merely seeing you in a certain place, it's actually give you a leg up, make you to be at an advantage in a way. That's how I see it.
So that means
So
you meant your blue passport there, right?
that blue passport, even outside the blue passport, what I have learned, America is like, even if you had not gone to school, doctor, I believe that the literacy level is so high. And I'm not saying literacy with regards to formal education.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying literacy as in you almost always have comfort of everything that we take, and we take those things for granted here in this country.
Hmm.
Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Let's assume something happens, somebody, maybe a truck did
Mm-hmm.
something to the pole in my county or
Mm-hmm.
around my area, and then we are out of power for one day or
Mm-hmm.
just 2 days or just few hours.
Mm-hmm.
People here, and I'm not saying that it's not justified for them, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that for me that came where I came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would take it in stride, other than someone who was never where I was, who
Yes.
was never in a developing country or
Yes.
in a country where power
Go
outage is
out
a
for wit.
constant,
Yes.
is
Yeah.
a way of life. So, and people here, they go into depression. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, food gets rotten and all
Mm-hmm.
that. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know how much food are rotten in Nigeria
Mm-hmm.
every day?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things that I'm saying, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about. Now, for what don't I like about America,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's really this discrimination thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In some areas, it's very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
In others, it's very poignant. It's in your face. But the fact that the government, and this is one of the other things that I love most about America, the
Mm-hmm.
law works. It
Okay.
doesn't matter how long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That thing that they have already set into the system
Mm-hmm.
will not allow you to go scot-free.
Mm-hmm.
It may take time, but the
Mm-hmm.
law will catch up with you. And it doesn't matter whether you are the president, you
Mm-hmm.
are the cupbearer, or a maid somewhere, or even
Mm-hmm.
if you are not legal, the law will take its course. So,
But
yeah.
when you talk about before we go back to Nigeria, when you talk about discrimination, isn't that quite like tribalism that happens in Nigeria? How how is it different from, is it different? Is it not the same thing?
It is different and it's not the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll tell you why I said that. It's different in the sense that, remember, I alluded to the law,
Yes.
American law, and the system. The system and the law is so rigged in a way that um, they allow, when you do something, there is the repercussion for
Okay.
you doing it, right?
Okay.
When things are not said the right way,
Mm-hmm.
this is your reward,
Okay.
right? There is
Mm-hmm.
consequence.
Okay.
You do XYZ out of the law, non-compliant,
Mm-hmm.
breeds enforcement
Consequences.
of law.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
breeds punishment. It
Okay.
breeds, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
because of that, so in the system here, the
Mm-hmm.
law, the legal system, as well as the law itself, have
Mm-hmm.
already created everybody to be equal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we say everyone is equal, now discriminating against someone just because of the gender, just because of the race, the background,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the race or the national origin, or ethnicity, then that will make you to be subjected to the law. That, So, but unlike in Nigeria, Nigerian constitution is different, even though we wanted to fashion it after the American system, except that Nigerians are not the one that actually made the Nigerian law. It was
Okay.
direct product of an edict,
Okay.
from the military dictatorship. And then
Okay.
they put it up together and then sold it to us, especially the one we are using now, the 1999 Constitution. It's
Okay.
not we, the people, supported. Now, in Nigeria, we have different nationalities put together in a nation,
Okay.
right? In a country.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as opposed to in America, we have everyone American put together. Yes, we came from somewhere, but English is our official language. Everything we are doing in America is so structured after the American system and lifestyle. Okay.
So I think what I will say will be the difference is that, in discrimination here, you're really held accountable, whereas, the system is structured not to tolerate discrimination, even though it happens. But in Nigeria, we might have issues where tribalism can go unchecked.
It goes unchecked even from the top to bottom, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, great.
And when you talk about tribalism in that sense, for example, look at me, I'm here in Maryland and I can work in the state government. I can work anywhere that fits my competency, my education, my skills, my abilities, right? But and then I can live anywhere, But it's the reverse is the case in Nigeria. So we're talking about, I live in Lagos. I have everybody else come to Lagos. It doesn't matter where you are from the country. You come to Lagos, you can live in Lagos, you can buy a land in Lagos, you can build there, right? You can get a state job. But what happened to me when I moved to another territory that is not my
area, then that becomes
my tribe? It becomes an issue. They would never allow me to purchase any landed property,
Yeah.
And God forbid somebody should give me a lease to rent a house. God forbid that I should be in the government of another state that is not in my tribe.
The Bushes come to mind as you're talking. I'm thinking, George Bush, who was governor in Texas, and then his brother Jeb was governor in Florida. And it's this one family, but they could be governors in two different states based on what they had lived and contributed to.
Exactly. Their orientation and their
Yes.
intent. America, to come back to the law, your intent, your express of intent is what, and your years of residency is what actually really truly matter. That is how they look at Mrs. Clinton when she became the senator in New York. She had to intentionally moved over, reside there and learn, be there, pay her taxes and all those things there.
They had been in
Because they
Arkansas where her
speaking
husband was governor in Arkansas.
governor
She was going to
in
visit with her.
Arkansas,
Yes.
that type of a thing. But it's never going to be so in Nigeria because we cherry pick what we want to do.
We cherry pick. So let's take that to take you to Nigeria. What do you miss most about Nigeria and what don't you miss about Nigeria?
Okay, I miss the food. I'm an FFO for food only. Yes. And then, of course, we still eat to some extent, some certain foods here, but it's never the same. It's not that fresh. It's not that organic. And it's not at the slightest mood. I'm here today. I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to eat that. You know how to source
I
it.
know.
Who can source it.
Exactly.
Even going on the streets. Oh my gosh, I love me my echo.
I know, buying your food I know that I think the last time I went to Nigeria, I ate suya for like 5 days straight.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Because that's what you miss most, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah. When
yes.
I get home, I'm like, even before I lost my sister, and she's always watching me and saying that Tinu, don't start eating anything on the street, and then you get back to
And then
your
you have sick.
destination, and then you
Uh-huh.
start falling sick and all that.
What
So
don't
she
what don't you
I
miss?
don't even listen to her. So my niece and I, and sometimes my nephew, are
Mm-hmm.
children. So when we go out, we know how to sneak stuff and all that. So
Absolutely.
I miss that. I miss my
What
sister.
don't you miss about Nigeria?
Oh my gosh. And then is it the traffic? Oh my gosh. Also, and I've said this earlier on. Um, you miss for me, and I remember the very first time I went home, even with my daughter, I had to walk barefooted.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that. In the
Oh,
rain, oh my
uh-huh,
gosh,
uh-huh.
I love to go out in the rain,
Mm-hmm.
even though rain is not good for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
salt, I will melt, but
Mm-hmm.
just to put my feet on
On
the
the ground.
ground with the water,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Yeah,
miss that.
I know what you said about traffic. There was somebody who said to me once, like, the issue I have is not so much of electricity. I can get a generator or do my own power thing. I can get my own borehole or do something, I
Mhm.
can do all of those things. He said, but the traffic,
The traffic.
actually you spend half of your day in traffic. So that was the
Yes.
thing for
Oh my
that person.
gosh.
That
It
was
stifles things for you. You can't plan around anything.
Mhm,
Here, I mean, you want to do 5, 6 things within an hour or two, depending on
mhm.
where you're going. You will have it done. But in Nigeria, if you set your goals to doing 3 or 4 things, God help us. God help you if you're successful at one.
Yeah, the only scenario that's comparable to that when I think about it is if there's traffic, if there's an accident on the highway, and because I think they're very melodramatic when there's a traffic accident on the highway, the fire truck comes, the ambulance comes, and they close down all the lanes,
Everything.
and
But give it to the system. The system is working. It's
Mhm.
doing what it set out to do.
Awesome, awesome. So let's look now as we are beginning to round up our conversation, and let's talk about what do you feel that you've accomplished here that you wouldn't have been able to accomplish if you were at home? Is there anything like that? Do you think, this is something it's because of I'm here that this has happened, or is there nothing like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
So
really don't think so.
then let's look at the last one, which might not, apply to you, but I'd like to ask again anyway, is there such a thing as retiring and going back home for you and your husband, or is this it? Are you here and is this the fabric of where you are? And if so, why or why not?
I tell you, it is the fabric of where I am right now, but I'm going to be retired. I would go home. I would not spend 100% in Nigeria or Yoruba land, if
Mm-hmm.
I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I will be 60/40 or 70/30. However, in fact, not even glued to uh, a certain country
Mm-hmm.
because of what the Lord has put in my hands, and you are one of the people the Lord is using, for She Rises International Inc. It's an advocacy that we established to help girls and women, advocating for them in every area we can. This is for gender justice and equity here
Mm-hmm.
in the US and also throughout the developing world. So for me, retirement will be, yeah, I'm here today. Yeah, I might be someplace else tomorrow, but it's not going to be stationed in just one place. Yeah.
Okay, great. So there's no like, yeah, this is you're going to continue to work and your work it might take you to different places, including Nigeria or beyond. Great.
Yeah, and that work, of course, it's may not necessarily be paying myself, in maybe
Mm-hmm.
humanity, just advocating for people, human rights,
Mm.
civil rights, anything in that arena. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, great. Attorney Tinu, it's been wonderful talking to you. We had this extensive conversation. We talked about the fact that you got married and you came here because you got married. And one of the remarkable things in your household was overcoming that narrative that a second language you will impact children negatively. You actually allowed your children to have your Yoruba language be their first primary language, and it
Yes.
didn't impact them at all. Although your daughter tried to put a Nigerian accent from a visit, but she can now do them in different accents. We talked about the fact that there's a narrative that you are working below your level when you come here. And it's not necessarily working below your level, it's just kind of stooping to conquer. But the other
Yes,
benefits from, even if you don't get that your level here, there's other benefits from quality of education and association that you benefit from being here, such as the
exactly.
fact that you have excellent opportunities to do
Yes,
great things and you have excellent facilities so that your light doesn't go out, for instance. um, we talked about the fact that, yeah, there might be discrimination here, and it might seem similar to tribalism in Nigeria, but it's not the same thing because the laws hold people
accountable.
accountable here and doesn't let them do that. And there's no, but you miss Nigeria, you miss the food in Nigeria, you miss being able to go out in the rain and play. You don't miss the traffic, obviously, but you like the system and the opportunities and how things work here, and you're currently doing this your nonprofit, She Rises International, working for gender justice for women and girls. And so you don't really see yourself as retiring to one particular place. It's going to be, your time is going to be shared between the US, Nigeria, and other places that you're
Other
working in.
countries, yes.
Yes, that you're working in. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we go away, is there any last things you want to share, something that you really think is important for this narrative? I think, one of the things I like about having these conversations is to see different perspectives or different things. I mean, so when you talked about deliberately introducing your children to the language and stepping away from that narrative, because maybe some people haven't really taught their children the language because they bought into that story that it's going to slow people down, or people are saying, yeah, you're working at less than your level, but everything is not about level, as it were.
Mm-mm,
There are many
mm-mm.
components to living. So you may not be at that equivalent of a sound position, but you have had an exposure that is really remarkable, that somebody who is at a sound level may have the title, but not have the exposure or the culture. So what
Exactly.
sharing, for instance, is something that we value in this community very well. And how many high level people do you see who go and volunteer? But giving back to the community is really very helpful. So I want to give
Yes.
you opportunity for any last conversations, contributions you wanted to share about your experience and the thing that you feel that, yes, I'm in the diaspora, but this is who I am, this is what I'm contributing here, and this is why it's okay for us to straddle both walls, as it were.
Yes, it is really. And having both worlds, or having the beauty of the both worlds, it's actually gives you sort of like makes you whole in a way. It's holistic, yeah, because you're gaining the benefits of both worlds. I can switch as I like, and in terms of everything. And I'll share this also. My advice, especially to people who come here, it doesn't matter what you have. In my statement earlier, I said stooping to conquer. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that early in my days, and especially because of who raised me. She's a very humble woman, and she taught us wherever you find yourself, make good use of that place, because you never know. And sometimes you need to be good to everybody at every level so that when you are climbing up, you are good to them. because you will need exactly the same people on your way down. So for me, I can abound and abase, and if you are a director of an organization or an agency, thank God for you. But when you find yourself over onto another soil, please do be humble. Learn the ropes. Try and see and find people you can surround yourself with that will lead you or guide you through that path. And then Rome wasn't built in a day. We love that expression, but we don't like it when we have to practicalize it. So I'm saying that to my friends or buddies out there who may find themselves on this other side. And then it is indeed the truth. Yeah, grass is always green on the other side. But when you get to that grass, you may find out that it's actually an oasis. So, but not necessarily bad, but it may not be as rosy, as beautiful as you have perceived it when you were on the other side. Every good thing requires hard work at that.
Every good thing requires hard work. Let that be our closing line on the Diaspora Dialogue series with LA today. My guest has been Attorney Tinu Akinshola. She came to the United States as having finished law school in Nigeria, and she's working and contributing very much to the United States community, runs a non-profit organization benefiting women and girls working on gender justice. My name is Lillian Agbaigbe. I'm your host on the Diaspora Dialogue series. I look forward to connecting with you on another episode. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lillian.
Thank you for coming. Bye.
Iṣẹ́, iṣẹ́.